start by saying that my name is Brian. Welcome to the Pink Room, by the way. And I've been a 30-year community advocate, activist, educator, working within community-based organizations and schools. I was a former alderperson for the City of Madison and past president of the City of Madison's Equal Opportunities Commission. And I think what defines me most is I'm a proud father of 5 really beautiful children. Of course, I'm a little biased, but 4 of them are adults. 4 of them went through Madison schools, 2 went to the UW and graduated. 1 graduated from Edgewood. And I have a 7-year-old at Lowell Elementary School. So being a father and a longtime family advocate, I've dedicated my life to working with the most vulnerable and marginalized people in our community.
Okay. I'm Greg Jaboski. I'm the secretary of the Dane County branch of Our Wisconsin Revolution. Doing one of the interviews. And Rich? Oh, you're muted.
You're still muted.
Still muted. I'm not sure what it is.
Okay, what about now?
Can hear you now. I was trying to read your lips.
Right.
That's a great skill. My name is Richard McGowan, and I'm on the steering committee for the Dane County chapter of OWR, and I was also recently elected to the state board to represent the 2nd Congressional District.
I don't know if I mentioned, right, I'm the secretary of the steering committee of the Dane County chapter. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you said that, yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you both for this chance to talk with you.
Let me take the first question, Rich, or?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. That's going to work. Do you support publicly funded elections? Why or why not?
So throughout our time together, if I state the obvious or if I'm preaching to the choir with you two, forgive me. I'm not trying to, but I want to just speak from my heart. So with this first question, yes, I do support publicly financed campaigns for a couple reasons. Number one is there's been special interests and big money in politics for way too long at every level of government. As a former alderperson, I saw it creep into local elections at the very core of democracy. Number two, why I support it is the power of incumbency is really, really impossible to beat at times, especially when we live in a society that many voters are apathetic or people aren't just following the issues. So it levels the playing field that allows new diverse voices to get involved within public policy.
Great. The next question, Brian, is do you favor extending the time frame to vote at the polls during elections to a minimum of 2 weeks ahead of the election date?
Absolutely. When I think about what the majority party has done with the tremendous assault on our democracy and quite frankly, our lives, trying to force people to go and vote in polling, anything to facilitate voting should have been done years ago. So of course I support that, and I would challenge all of us to even extending it more. This notion that there's been voter fraud has been well documented, that it's just a crock of bull crap. So I definitely support anything that can enhance our democracy, and voting is the core of it.
What model or plan do you prefer for redistricting?
Once again, this gerrymandering that's been going on for years just suits the majority party and the special interests that have placed them there, that we need nonpartisan commission to come together and once and for all create fair maps. I support the Fair Maps Coalition's plans. One of the things that really bothers me is the taxpayer money that's been blown with these legal challenges, which it is the most blatant form of an attack on our democracy, this gerrymandering.
What are your top 3 legislative priorities, and what will you do to move them through the legislature?
Thank you for that question. I think that's really at the core of why we're here together. And I just pulled up some notes to help keep me on track. That with two insidious diseases that are tearing apart the fabric of our city, our society, our world, COVID-19, and for centuries longer, systemic racism and oppression, my single most important priority is to bring people from diverse backgrounds together in unity and respect and love to try to forge a new, safe, socially just, and equitable Madison in Wisconsin. So the first priority is to follow the science. With the spike that we're reading about daily, I'm just bewildered that people can't get this. Follow the science and the CDC recommendations and other public health advisories. So as a state senator, this includes raising the level of awareness and advocating for the need to expand healthcare and quality, culturally informed mental health services. To do that, to treat, to test, and when a vaccine is available, to offer that for free now in the aftermath of the pandemic. So that's a huge priority. Another big priority is to greatly increase our healthcare capacity to handle the surge in cases. As I said before, I'm not saying anything new, that daily news, we see that this is spiking and a new demographic is handling the blunt of this, where younger people are getting sick. So we really have to expand our healthcare, and not only to address COVID-19, but what's in the future, what's around the corner. We should take these lessons learned and better prepare. So with that, I believe in dramatically expanding community health centers all throughout the state, that as we've been reading in the papers, once again, that hospitals are laying people off and they're not able to handle routine procedures because of this, that we're losing healthcare centers throughout the state. We need to drastically expand that and expand the workforce that will work in those health centers. And lastly, I really believe, and once again, I'm a social worker, I'm not a career politician. I know from the people that I currently serve that to provide a direct emergency cash payment to every person in Wisconsin for every month that this pandemic is going on. And I know that question is going to come up later. Another priority would be, we have a state emergency operations center, but I really, really believe that we need a state agency. So taken from something that Senator Sanders has suggested for a long time, that we need an emergency economic crisis finance agency to help us to focus solely on some of the economic woes that we're facing and to help us navigate out of COVID-19. So those would be my priorities as the next state senator for the 26th district. Now, with that said, I don't live in a bubble. I don't live in a vacuum. I don't have any grand illusions that I'm going to walk into the state capitol on day one and the majority party is going to say, holy cow, we finally get it. Your words have made us understand how cruel and how insensitive and how we've really messed this up for the years. But what I do believe is, with my past experience of bringing people together, that I can go into other districts, I can travel across the state, I can help to instill in people that we do need to come together, and that now more than ever to address some of these issues, and the divisiveness and the insanity that the majority party has offered us for far too long has to end.
In the emergence from the pandemic, would you support a state-level economic hardship payment? It's got some other parts. Do you support direct payments to residents? And describe the top 5 components that you think should be in such a bill.
Well, I had mentioned earlier, and once again, please forgive me for being redundant, but I really, really believe that. I currently work for the UW-Madison Odyssey Project, where I'm a social worker for about 550 of the most disenfranchised and marginalized folks in our community. And they're getting hammered. Many of them work entry-level jobs. They can't pay for their bills. They can't pay their rent. They can't buy food. They can't buy medicine. We need to do this immediately. The 5 things, the 5 components that I think we should really think about in incorporating this. And we know that there's federal money with the CARES Act, but that has some flaws. It lacks any provision to expand health coverage to pay for COVID-19 related treatments, or for the uninsured. It lacks a SNAP benefit to help people get food, the most marginalized people get food. And that would have a peripheral effect of helping to boost consumer spending while the economy remains weak. Another consideration is, unfortunately, millions of low-income households, they otherwise, they don't have to file taxes. So because they don't, they're not going to get this payment. And it goes without saying that many citizens who are U.S. citizens, but they might come from immigrant families, or they're part of a larger immigrant family, they're ineligible. We need to really do something about that. And it does entirely deny the rebate to certain immigrant families, as I said before, including some of the children who are US citizens. So we have to look at, rather than filing taxes as a way to get money into people's hands. So those are the 5 components that I think need to be done, and something that I'll work tooth and nail to do.
How will you guarantee housing to citizens? How will you deal with the financial situation of those facing eviction because of the pandemic? And what specific solutions would you propose?
So I had mentioned before that when I'm done with this call, I'll get right back to work. That's something that consumes a great deal of my time, is trying to keep the people that I serve in their housing. So without stating the obvious, that I believe with my whole heart that housing really should be a human right. When I was an alder person, I fought really hard over housing issues. And I believe that we have to end the housing crisis by really advocating at the federal level, and with my colleagues, once I'm elected to the state Senate, to invest the money needed to build permanently affordable housing units. I think that's going to be critical in the long run. But in the immediacy, I think we have to protect tenants by implementing a type of rent control here in Wisconsin, just cause requirement for evictions, and ensuring the right to legal counsel in all housing disputes. We have to keep people in their housing now more than ever. And even prior to this insidious pandemic, I was on the front lines dealing with these issues for the last 30 years. So COVID is, if it's done anything, it's stripped the veneer and the illusion away, and shine a spotlight on all the inequities that many people face, including housing. And I would make rent more affordable by making Section 8 vouchers more available to all eligible families, trying to eliminate any wait lists, and strengthening the Fair Housing Act. Here in Madison, we, over the years, have looked at gentrification. We tried inclusionary zoning, but to ensure that we eliminate exclusionary zoning and segregation and speculation. And then when I was the president of the Equal Opportunities Commission, I ushered in homelessness as a protected class. So we have to end homelessness and ensure fair housing for all.
Will you fight for a single-payer healthcare system at the state level? And do you support a federal single-payer healthcare system?
Absolutely, absolutely, Greg. That the healthcare system as it stands now is inequitable. Many people that I described, that I carry in my heart over the last 30 years, they're the ones directly impacted by not having universal healthcare and single payer. Yes, I will support that and fight for that with my.
Okay. Will you pass workers' rights laws helping those who are forced to return to work, but who risk infection from COVID-19? There's a second part of the question. Absent the equivalent of a single-payer system, will you push the state to guarantee medical coverage through Badger Care for those affected in this way?
I really, out of all the questions, that one really resonates to me, resonates with me. As I said before, that the vulnerable populations that I've served for the last 3 decades, and I continue to serve, they're the entry-level workers that are being pressured to go back to work, and they are at risk for infection. I would definitely push to expand Badger Care. As I said in earlier statement, that I believe that treatment, testing, and when a vaccine is developed should be free. But to set the foundation for that, we do need to ensure that everyone is guaranteed medical coverage now more than ever.
Next one is it's like there's a bunch of quick yes or no's, and they all have to do with policing. We took them straight from a group of Campaign Zero. We're supposed to these, I think, before the current events. We'll just go through them quickly. Do you favor ending so-called broken windows policing?
Yeah, I'm gonna look like a doll here for a while.
If you can actually say.
So I'm gonna, yes,
Okay.
I do.
Yeah, actually say the yes or no, because the
I will.
system picks up the person who's speaking. Okay.
I will.
Do you favor expanding community oversight of police?
Absolutely. That's the most immediate thing that I do favor.
Do you favor legal limits on use of force?
I do. Yes, I do.
Do you believe in independent investigation and prosecution of police where warranted?
Absolutely. That should have happened years ago.
Do you favor community representation, increased community representation of oversight of the police?
Absolutely.
Do you favor body cams and filming of the police?
I do.
Do you favor increased training for police on these issues?
I do.
Do you favor the end of for-profit policing?
Absolutely.
Okay. And do you favor demilitarization of the police?
I absolutely do. And really quick, I know that time is of the essence here, but I should disclose I'm a grandson, a son, a little brother of Milwaukee police officers. My grandfather and my dad were the first two of the first black police officers in the Milwaukee Police Department. And throughout my 30 years, I've met many amazing police officers that exemplify everything that you would want in law enforcement. But unfortunately, the way the system is now, and from my time on the city council, I remember that the police department here in Madison is almost their own separate government entity. So all of these measures from Campaign Zero would ensure that the community has more input on it. Because I got to tell you too, as alders, there's very few of us that would dig deep and look at this stuff. So I appreciate this question.
So the next question is, in addition, please respond to the following. Now, this is a multi-part question. Part A is a fill in the blank, and I'll tell you the options for the fill in the blank. And the sentence is, I will support blank funding for the police. And your options are increasing, leveling, decreasing, or eliminating funding for the police.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I know it's not an option, but I would say reimagine funding for the police. So not to sound flippant or trying to deflect, I guess the closest, the choices I would have would be decreasing. But I really believe we have to reimagine what policing could look like. And there's some models like Cahoots out west and other models that we can look at. And as I said it before, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm a social worker, not a career politician. And I recognize that the tremendous injustices over the years and the people that are disproportionately impacted by police abuse. So we really have to reimagine what it could look like. But in the interim, I always argued the cost of a fully loaded police squad car, give me that money for an after school program, and the outcomes will be much better for everyone in our community.
There's a couple other parts of the question. So a police officer in your jurisdiction has been filmed killing someone. They have stopped or arrested. How do you respond?
So Richard and Greg, I'm you know, there's politics and then there's humanity. That what I would do, and not for any type of political gain, I find that repulsive, but I would really extend myself to the family and offer my condolences and my support, and really look at the visceral fact that a human being was killed unjustly. So number one, my concern would be for the victims, to try to help them find a path to find peace in something that is unimaginable. And then I would release a statement. I believe in due diligence. I believe in our legal system to a point. And initially, that would be the first thing I would do, is really make sure that the people directly impacted knew that from my heart that I cared, not as a senator or as a politician.
Okay. And you may have touched on this before, but if you wouldn't mind just listing other propositions regarding policing that you would fight for in your role.
Once again, when I was on the city council and the police budget would come up, I think people would be shocked how much oversight or lack of oversight that we held as the local elected officials. There's almost a leap of faith, and when you did question policing, there was this perception that you were soft on crime. So I watched many politicians over the years play this really insidious dance, or this game of political Red Rover, where the most marginalized are pulled over by those that are with privilege and power. That with policing, with community control, and really looking at our priorities. So if there's a mental health incident, you know, there's a lot of joke now, and I said it before, I'm a social worker, but I think I'm better poised to go and talk to someone that's experienced a mental health crisis than someone carrying a 9mm gun and a taser. So we really have to look as a society how we're really putting forth safety in our communities. And right now, people are not feeling safe. And every day you hear about a shooting here in Madison. And that's getting drowned out and lost in all the other things that are going on. So we really need to get into communities and look at the root of some of these issues that are going on, the negative impacts of poverty, what creates crime within communities, and really look at things holistically. You can hire 1,000 officers. It's not going to make a difference the way our society is set up, especially when they're protected by an unjust system. So we really have to reimagine policing, and it starts with bringing people from different backgrounds together in the community and having these really difficult, deep conversations.
Myself. Who did you support in the Democratic Party presidential primary this year, and why? And when did you start publicly supporting this person?
Well, I feel a little robbed. I supported Senator Sanders, and that never. What can I say? Once again, I don't want to preach to the choir or anything, but so after that, I'm going to support Biden. I cannot fathom 4 more years of 45 in office, and just the world, how it's changed so dramatically since 45's taken office. So I'll be supporting Biden, and I've stated publicly within my orbit that the minute that Senator Sanders withdrew from the contest.
Let's see.
What is your analysis of the Evers administration handling of the COVID-19 crisis in Wisconsin, including its handling of the processes leading up to the April 7th election?
Well, I got to tell you that nobody knew, right? Just since May, how our worlds have been rocked, and the fabric of our society has just been ripped apart. So for me to assign any type of not necessarily judgment on one individual, I'm pleased with what Governor Evers has attempted to do. I think the biggest comment that I would have, or the biggest consideration, is what the majority party has done to put our lives at risk, with the Supreme Court ruling, with the fact that for economic gain, for money, that they're willing to put the lives of people at risk for that is deplorable, and I think it's criminal. So I watched Governor Evers today, his press conference, and as the latest information from the CDC and other scientific entities come out, I believe that the governor is following the science and doing the best that he can. But regrettably, we have this majority party that it's insane to me. It's complete insanity that people's lives are put at risk for the notion of economic gain without seeing the bigger picture. So sure. I think the governor's done great. I think the state legislator, the majority party, has been dismal to say the least, and criminal, if you really wanted my complete honesty.
Okay. And just for clarity, the second part of that question you answered. I failed to pose it, but it's what your response to the state legislature's handling of the crisis was, and you just answered it. So unless you wanted to say more, but
no, it's
I think
criminal.
that should suffice.
It's criminal and callous.
Are you supportive of the BDS movement, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement?
I am. I got to be really candid. I don't know a ton about that, but as I try to dig and do some research, I certainly do. That as we think about crafting and forging a new future, especially during the pandemic, that to place economic pressures. We all know that during this time, the riches have continued to get richer, and the poor has just suffered tremendously. So anything that we can do to create an equitable economic system, I think that I would love to support that. And the second part of that, I think should not be punished. No, the movement should not be punished. That I'm inspired by the social movements that I'm seeing now. I started back in Milwaukee in the height of the civil rights movement, marching with Father James Groppe. I went to St. Boniface. So the time I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I was in the streets. And throughout the years, I had been in the streets with issues that I'm really passionate about. And I'm deeply inspired by the tremendous diverse young people and youth that are out there who have already impacted change. They've already helped to get police officers out of school. So I'm very supportive of the movements in the streets.
Can you list unions that have already endorsed you in this race? And which labor endorsements are you seeking?
Oh, Rich, you touched a really soft spot in my heart. As a kid, my mother was one of the first Black union officers in the state of Wisconsin. So I grew up in union halls, and I grew up a union kid. I would love every union endorsement. I've sought from MTI to AFT to the building trades. I haven't heard anything in these types of races, regrettably, that there are some kingmakers within a certain party that is backing other candidates. So I would love any labor endorsement. I would love your endorsement. That would make a big deal to me. We've been very careful about endorsing. I don't want to put up a bunch of former elected officials on my page or on my literature. I always say that endorsements are kind of like this weird covenant outside of politics. And the endorsements that I choose are endorsements long outside of politics that I'll be willing to fight for, and that will mean everything to my heart. So none as yet. I'm hoping that it change soon. We've had some interviews and sent in questionnaires, so I'm hoping.
Just want to mention to our listeners, Brian answered. There was a couple. Our question 14. Do you believe that protesting is a form of speech and therefore the right to do so, including BDS and anti-pipeline movements, both of which have been had legislation passed against them or proposed legislation should not be punished, and he had answered that. I will go to question 16. Regarding fundraising, it's kind of long and detailed. I'll go through. Regarding fundraising, how much have you raised for this race to date? Who are your top 3 donors? What percentage of your total is from these top donors? How much of it is strictly from small individual donors of less than $50? And if this is not your first election, please answer this question regarding your last election as well.
Great, thank you for that. When I started this campaign, it was started with the realization that I'm really proud of the work that I do within the community. I'm proud of my current job with the UW-Madison Odyssey Project. I'm really proud of the last 3 decades, but more needed to be done at the macro level. So I had this epiphany and I jumped into this race late. I jumped in with kind of pie in the sky ideals, and I'll stand by these ideas that I'm tired of money in politics. For every dollar raised on a political election, I could use that money to keep people in their housing. I could use that money to help people buy medicine, food, diapers for their babies. So I'm living this reality, but I came to the grim reality just a few days ago that no matter how strong I believe in our true grassroots efforts, we do need money. We needed money to recently purchase yard signs. We needed money to have campaign literature. Without the pandemic, I would be knocking on thousands of doors and engaging people in a real interpersonal way. So out of all the campaign finance reports, I think we're in the cellar for the most part, as far as I don't want to say major candidates running because everyone is major that's running, but we are definitely down in the cellar, and I took a lot of pride in that. But with less than a month to go here, or just a little over a month, we're going to actively try to fundraise more, and then whatever money's left over at the end of our campaign, I'm committed to donating it to the Road Home here in Madison to help people find housing that are homeless or facing housing insecurity. So I couldn't tell you the exact amount. I'm thinking it was like right around 3,000 that we raised. And please, once again, keep in mind, I didn't ask for a penny in the beginning. I had this romantic notion that folks are going to get out and we're going to make homemade yard signs, and we're going to do this a la 1960, that we were going to win the old-fashioned way. But regrettably, it's come down that we need money. As far as my biggest donor, his name is Tony Landowski, and his son, Sam, is my campaign manager. And Sam just graduated from the UW-Madison last year. And Tony gave me $500. He's an old high school friend. I love him like a brother. That was by far, in a way, our biggest donation. All the other donations have come from friends and neighbors and people that believe in our message to be more inclusive and open doors of policy to other people. So I don't have a list of 3 donors. We didn't get any PAC money. I don't anticipate like the Chamber of Commerce isn't going to kick in money, or Wisconsin manufacturers. So we're going to do this on the slim, the best that we can, and I'm committed to that. We want to win. I believe we will win. I have an amazing group, and that's one of your last questions. I have an amazing group of dedicated young social activists that are the core of our campaign, and none of them get a penny. I haven't even bought them a soft drink yet. So people that have joined together with us are people that believe that money should be out of politics, and we're doing the best that we can with that.
Do you support the legalization of recreational cannabis, including the expungement of all previous cannabis-related charges, and the release of all those currently serving time for such charges?
Rich, I absolutely do. And I mentioned numerous times that being a social worker, for the last 30 years, I've served many people that were combating the effects of alcohol and other drug abuses. And we do live in a society that self-medicates. And for far too long, marijuana has been demonized, more so that bears out in disparities within our criminal justice system, within incarceration. So I believe it should be legalized, and I believe it should be taxed appropriately to help us during not only the time of COVID-19, but long in the aftermath to support programs to help people reach their full potential. For far too long, this insanity over marijuana has existed. And once again, a lot of that is rooted in racial, systemic racism and racial disparities.
And this will be our last question. It's and you may have answered it already. I'll repeat it again. You can you can bring it up. Do you have paid staff or consultants working on your campaign? And what percentage of your campaign funding goes to paid staff or consultants?
We don't have a penny to offer anyone working on our campaign. What we offer is a chance to be part of a movement to directly impact people's lives for the better. And people have bought into that. And I'm really deeply honored and humbled by that. So as far as what percentage of campaign funding, I owe them all a dinner. You know, I'm a father of 5. Everyone on my campaign team is, you know, in their 20s and working very, very hard. I owe them a ton of gratitude. So no, we have no